So what is this little wire? And that's a fantastic question, one that I got in email just the other day from KI5WEP Lisa, who goes by LMC on the air. And the little wire, you can see it right back in there. It's this little wire back behind the paddles, and I've taken one out here so we can get a better look at it. But Lisa writes, Adam, I have one other question. Do all of the bugs have that little wire at the back by the paddles on the bugs, or just some models? I'm looking at these bugs on email and just wonder if it'll be a pain in the keister to make that little wire in the back, or if some do not require it. Thanks, and best, Lisa. So that's a fantastic question. I really like it. Now, I could answer it simply. I could say, oh, that little wire is on the Deluxe and the presentation models and be done with it. But I kind of feel like that's telling someone that pi r squared is the area of a circle without explaining the super cool reason why pi r squared is the area of a circle. But that's another video. So let's talk about exactly why that is. And the answer starts in 1939 when John Hiff filed a patent which was assigned to Vibroplex with 3 new bug features. The first was the jeweled movement, the second was an adjustable mainspring, and the third was an improved damper. The damper, however, was never used on a Vibroplex bug, but those first 2 were. And the jeweled movement was put in place right away on the Deluxe models, which of course typically have a chrome base, typically have a little red ornament on top, and don't have the adjustable trunnion screw on the top. So, what is a jeweled movement? Let's take a couple of these bugs apart and just, see what they're made of. So first things first, let's go ahead and take the top trunnion screw out of this original standard. And let's see, this one is 166426 serial number, so that's going to be a 1950. It's got the black crinkle base. And if we look inside the trunnion screw here, you can see that it's just metal, it's just a little hole. And if I really carefully take this out of here, like that, we can see that the top of the spindle is pointy, and it's pointy, and it sits right there in that trunnion, and it just rotates right on that pivot point, and there is metal to metal contact. If, however, we take apart a Deluxe model or a presentation model, we'll see something that's quite a bit different. And of course, since the Deluxe and the presentations don't have that adjustable top trunnion, we'll have to do this from the bottom. And in order to do it from the bottom, we have to first loosen the lock screw down at the very bottom of the main frame assembly. And then from the back, we can take out the lower trunnion screw. So that's the lower trunnion screw of this presentation model. It'll be the same one on the Deluxe models. It's a little bit dirty. Let me see if I can just clean that up a touch. And I'm going to use just a dab of contact cleaner on this Q-tip, which is not necessary for any practical purpose, but I want you to be able to get a really good look inside there. Okay, so if we look inside this trunnion screw, it's going to be hard to see on camera, but what I can describe to you is it's not just a metal empty hole, there's actually a little glass bead in there, a little jewel. So that's your jeweled bearing. And if we go ahead and take the pendulum assembly out of here, you will see that the top and bottom of the pivot, the top and bottom of the spindle, are rounded. They're not pointy at all. So the standard model has a pointy pivot, and the Deluxe and Presentation have rounded pivots, and those rounded pivots are going to rest right on that glass jewel, which, as the Hiff patent describes, allows them to be turned with almost no effort exerted whatsoever, which, one, makes the bug more responsive, but also, if you were a professional telegraph operator, it was slightly less effort on your hand and wrist. It would be like if you spent all day walking from one end of the building to another and you were able to save yourself 5 steps. 5 steps doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add it up, trip over trip over trip, at the end of the day, it makes a big difference. So that's the point of the jeweled movement. And as long as we've got this open, let's go ahead and talk about the other part of that Hiff patent that was used, the adjustable mainspring. So on this presentation model, and not all presentation models have this, they only used it for a few years. There are 2 little screws on top of the pendulum lever assembly and the mainspring, which is just this little leaf spring that goes right there, and that's the springiness that lets the key send dits. If you loosen these 2 screws up a little bit, that oops, butterfingers. Okay. And if you do completely remove the mainspring assembly, it takes just a little bit of finagling, technical term, to lift this little washer up and get it back in there. So the mainspring actually moves in and out of the lever assembly. I did it again. And by shortening and lengthening that spring, if you shorten the spring, it's going to make it go much faster. If you lengthen the spring, it's going to give it a little more bounce. So it actually gives you a very adjustable key. I always say that every bug is a little bit different. Every bug handles a little bit different, and most of that difference is just in the small and minute, almost unnoticeable variations of the spring in the mainspring. Well, with the Hiff patent, the adjustable mainspring, you can get this bug dialed in exactly the way you want it, lock it down, and you probably never need to mess with that again. But it's a really cool feature. And that's what really makes the presentation models, well, originally they were going to be called the Super Deluxe. So it's a Deluxe with a fancy gold-plated top piece and one more feature that really makes it Super Deluxe. And of course, the later models of presentation don't have the Hiff adjustable mainspring, so they're just decoration, essentially. They're Deluxes with a little more decoration. So that's that. Now back to the little wire. Why the little wire? Well, when I take that metal-to-metal contact that you get in the standard model, that's metal-to-metal contact. That's going to conduct the signal, the switch, from the 2 contacts down through the base and into the contact post. However, on the Deluxe and presentation models, that it's not necessarily metal to metal, it's metal to glass, and metal to glass doesn't conduct electricity. Now, you may have one of these and you may say, well, I removed my wire and it still works. Some do, some don't. It really depends, how deep that little glass bead is set, how worn the trunnion screws are, how worn the spindle is. It's not a reliable connection. Even if it happens to be working right now, it doesn't mean that it's going to work forever, and it doesn't mean it's going to work all the time. So the simple solution is this little wire braid. Typically, it attaches to the main lever assembly here on this screw, and it attaches to the main frame assembly here on this screw. So that's, that's the purpose of the wire. It's to give us a solid and reliable electrical connection to allow the bug to send its signal. Same thing applies not only to the standards, but also to the blue racers. I've got a couple of blue racers here, and you could barely tell these apart. They look very similar. Obviously this one has an adjustable top trunnion. This one has the red paddles like that come with the Deluxe. But what is the difference? Well, this one, serial number 115551, so that's going to be a 1940. This is made before they really got popular with the jeweled bearings. So even though it is a Deluxe model, it's got the chrome, it didn't have the jeweled bearing. And then this one, which is a much later model, serial number 244563, and that's going to be a 1965. So that's after they started putting the jeweled bearings in the blue racer. So if we look at the front, you can see there is no connecting wire in here because, again, it's got that metal-to-metal contact between the spindle and the trunnion. And if we look at the later Deluxe model, which does have the glass beads, that those jeweled bearings, the jeweled movement, it does have that little coiled wire going from the main lever to the main frame. And that's essentially all it does. That's what allows this to send its signals out. So I hope that was interesting. I really like this particular history. Since the Hiff filed that patent in 1939, and they started production in 1939 on these, but then I think the first ad didn't come out in QST until 1940. And, the rest is history since then. Vibroplex is still using jeweled movement today on its Deluxe and presentation models. So that's the story. That's a really long answer to say, why is there a wire? Is it only on some models? And of course, the short answer again is that wire is just on the Deluxe and presentation models. And specifically, the Deluxe and presentation models made after 1939. Anyway, that's all for now. I hope to see y'all very, very soon, and 7-3.